everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess.net. Welcome to this new video, and we continue analyzing the World Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana. And now we'll take a look at round 2. In this game, Carlsen was white and Caruana was black, and we see Magnus starting with d4. Probably in other games in this match we'll see other openings like e4, the English, or even the Reti with knight f3. I don't think they'll play the same opening over and over during the match. So Magnus plays d4, Fabiano plays knight to f6, and here Carlsen plays knight to f3. A flexible move. We can also play c4, obviously, but knight f3 is flexible. Black plays d5, and here white decides to play Queen's Gambit. Also, bishop f4 is quite popular, and that would be the London system, which was played a lot by Magnus, by the way. So, okay, c4, Queen's Gambit, and this is one of the first surprises we have in this match. Caruana plays with e6, and I say this is a surprise because he's been playing the Queen's Gambit accepted a lot recently. This has been his main weapon in the last tournaments, and this is what Carlsen was probably expecting to see in this game. He plays e6, Magnus plays with knight c3. Another option is the Catalan. Here, if white plays the fianchetto, so knight c3, and here bishop to e7. The orthodox, also known as one of the main moves of the Queen's Gambit, declined. Black has other choices like playing a semi-Slav with c6, bishop to b4 would be the Ragozin, d takes c4 is also quite popular. Another move I like here, and I played this a lot, is a6. This move was played by Magnus as black as well, but bishop e7 is probably the most solid option for black. Here Magnus plays bishop f4, Fabiano castles, and e3. We are following the main line of the Queen's Gambit decline, so c5, white takes, bishop takes c5, and queen c2. This is an aggressive approach by white, who's trying to play something like rook d1, or even queenside castle, and who knows, maybe we can even consider attacking on the king side. But first, we need to finish our development. Caruana played knight c6. Black has some ideas involving knight b4, so we play a3, and now queen to a5. Black, he's been super aggressive. Now, with the queen on a5, he's pinning the knight on c3, and that is making moves like knight e4 possible. Believe it or not, the rook on a1 is hanging, so knight b4 is now a possibility, and even a move like d4 is on the table. So after queen a5, it is fair to say we have to be careful as white, and Magnus plays the natural move rook to d1. Facing an opponent like Caruana, a well-prepared opponent like Caruana, you get the feeling castling queenside is not a good move, because if you castle queenside, well, I'm not saying this is not possible, but you know what I mean. The king is at risk on the queenside. Black, he can probably fire with a6 and b5, and we are not really having a threat with b4 because the a3 pawn is hanging, and worst case scenario, black can consider sacrificing a piece, and we have the king on c1. So After queen a5, I don't think castling queenside is good. At least in this situation, that's not a good idea. A move I would consider is knight d2. This is a good way of dealing with queen a5, because then we have ideas like knight b3. And we are also getting rid of the pin, because now knight c3 is no longer under the pin. But yeah, rook d1 looks also playable. After all, we are stopping d4. So rook d1, black plays rook to d8, and now bishop to e2. I like the approach played by Magnus. We just play bishop e2, we castle as soon as possible, and even if black is super prepared in this position, it looks like he's gonna equalize and that's it. It's like we are not getting mated in this position. A different story would be playing b4, and this is quite dangerous because, as I was saying, we have the king in the center and we have no development at all. So black here, he would be delighted to sacrifice. He continues with bishop takes b4, and now we are in a tough spot here because if we play rook c1 or bishop e5, we still have a tough position, because here rook c1, knight to e4, the attack continues. We have to play this move, bishop to e5, and then well, both f6 and e5, or even this move d4, yeah, we are toasted here. King in the middle, no defense, knight c3 hanging, maybe this, but then bishop takes c3. We have to play king e2 or king d1. This looks dreadful, to be honest. And king e2, this is not improving that position, because then he's got d3 check and queen a4. So okay, this is it is mate. Rook c2, queen takes c2, checkmate. So yeah, this playing b4 doesn't make any sense. As I was saying, no development. And another variation we can consider here is, yeah, knight e4, bishop e5, d4, maybe bishop takes d4, but then the obvious move, rook takes d4, is probably working. And I mean, I would play this blindfolded because I trust in black's development advantage, and it feels impossible for white to castle. So yeah, bishop takes, rook takes d4 is winning in my opinion. And another move, which is probably winning as well, is e5. Everything is hanging and most of black pieces are out. So yeah, pointless for white to even consider b4 in this position. So yeah, he plays the natural bishop to e2. Black plays knight to e4. Here white castles, knight takes. Here white, he takes with the pawn, taking with the queen. Well, this is possible too, but then he can safely take the pawn on a3, and black is simply up a pawn. We have no counterplay, no compensation. So after knight takes c3, Carlsen takes with the b pawn, and now a precise move by Caruana, h6. I'm pretty sure this is part of his home preparation, because we'll see how precise he was, I mean, after a couple of moves. h6, this move is required. If we play, well, queen takes, this loses the queen, rook a1, there's no escaping squares for the queen. Bishop takes a3, I mean, rook a1, this is tough to play as black. We have the threat of queen b3, and if he moves the queen away from the a file, well, we can still trap that bishop with queen a2. So black doesn't have time to take the a3 pawn, and I mean, he can take this pawn later because a3 is super weak, but we have to pay attention to the king side. Black doesn't have any pieces there, no defenders, and we have the idea of playing this move. So h6 makes a lot of sense, and then Carlsen plays a4. We can also consider taking on d5, but then we're helping black here because bishop c8 has a free diagonal. He takes d5, and then black is ready to finish his development. And we have to be careful because as white we have a potential worse endgame if he plays something like rook c8, you know, c3, a3. We have weaknesses, so taking on d5 doesn't look like the best move yet. a4, this looks better, and then another nice move by Caruana, knight to e7. As white we have to act quickly because if we don't, then we'll end up in a worse position with a worse pawn structure. As you can see, white's pawn structure isn't ideal. If we take on d5, he can even consider taking with the piece, and black keeps a healthy pawn structure. And after knight e7, he has the simple idea of playing bishop to d7, and then a4 is likely to fall. So after knight e7, white plays the aggressive knight e5, and I like it because basically we stop bishop d7, and yeah, as white, worst case scenario I can take, and at least I can tell I have the bishop pair. That's good. In the open position I can try exploiting light squares. So knight e5, bishop d7 was possible, but Caruana plays bishop to d6. And as I was saying, I still think we are following his opening preparation, because here we have an interesting possibility for white. Magnus takes on d5. Here black plays the fearless, knight takes d5, and as you can see we have some stuff going on the d file. Bishop d6 is sort of hanging, the d file, white can possibly, he can consider something like c4, or even this move knight c4, which is probably the first move you look as white, knight c4 with this double attack. And I mean, this variation is tough to play this as black. That's why I'm saying we are following Caruana's preparation, because here he's allowing so many things and none of them are working. So let's see the possibilities. Knight c4, this double threat, it looks great, but black can simply play queen takes c3. Our queen is hanging. If we move the queen, then he plays the simple bishop takes f4. So we take. Knight takes, and now bishop e2 is hanging, so it's rook d1. We have no good moves here. I mean, if we take on d6, he can safely take on e2 with check. He's up a pawn. And if we play something like this, which is what the computer says, then knight takes d1, and if rook takes, then he plays the simple bishop e7, and we can resign here as white. Down this change, down a pawn, no compensation. So yeah, knight c4 is simply met by queen takes c3, and we have no more ideas for white. So knight c4, not a possibility. Sure, we can play a move like this, but then c3 is still hanging. I don't see any obvious compensation for white. This move was... I remember watching this game live and I was considering this move, and I still think we are following Fabiano's preparation. Knight takes f7 looks quite interesting because we destroy his king side, we have ideas like bishop h5. We have a double threat, so black doesn't have many options. I mean, if he takes on f4, then we take on d8 first and we win material. If he plays king takes f7, I mean, we have bishop h5, our queen is suddenly entering the king side, so this looks quite playable for white, and it looks even better in practice because black has an extra piece, but his development is not good. His bishop and rook are sleeping on the queen side, and it looks like we have c4, getting the piece back. But here is the problem. After c4, black has queen c7, avoiding c takes d5, protecting the rook on d6, and if we play a move like this, then he plays the simple bishop to d7, giving the piece back, attacking the pawn on a4, and according to the ancients, this is close to equal. I don't know, but I get the feeling, as I said so many times, Caruana had all this prepared and he wasn't concerned at all about knight takes f7. I mean, if Carlsen played this move, who knows, maybe this is still equal, but Magnus had to play all the computer's moves not to fall in a worse position. That's my opinion, because Caruana had all this in his home preparation. So Carlsen played bishop f3 in this position, no knight takes f7, no knight c4. He plays bishop to f3, and then black takes on f4. It looks like in this position white has some pressure, some compensation for black's bishop pair, but we see after some exchanges, black is he's just fine here because he's got a better pawn structure, he's finishing his development very soon, and well, after queen c7, all he has to do is get his bishop c8 out, and then he's equal at least. As white, we have a lot of weaknesses and no real compensation. I mean, we have some pressure on the queen side, sure, but I don't think this is enough to claim an advantage. And as I was saying, we have to be concerned about all the weaknesses we have. e5, a4, c3. So, yeah, Magnus plays rook to b1, black plays the easy move, rook to b8, unpinning the b7 pawn, queen d3. Simple. Well, if we take on e5 as black, then we have to be careful about queen d8 check, but black plays the easy move, bishop d7, and Magnus plays a5. Okay, queen takes a5 is obviously not possible, because bishop d7 is hanging, but Caruana plays bishop c6, and white decides to enter this endgame with queen d6. I mean, yeah, according to the computer, this is the best move, and this is another possibility, playing bishop takes c6. It is tough to believe, but after pawn takes, that computer is saying black is clearly better, and that's almost unbelievable, because as white, we have a solid position, but if we take a closer look, we'll realize black is indeed much, much better. And one of the reasons is we have two weak pawns, and, well, we have to take on b8. If we move the rook somewhere else, he takes on a5 or e5. We cannot protect both pawns at once. So imagine we take, then queen takes, and now we have to play f4. If we play something else, we can even get mated on the first rank. So this, and then black has queen b2. You know, queen's endgames are usually drawish because all the perpetual checks possibilities, but here that's not so. I mean, we can play queen d8, king h7, queen d3, then he plays g6. No more checks. We still have a lot of weaknesses, all sort of ways to lose a pawn. Queen a1 check, queen c1 check. We can play this move, but then our king is way too passive. And here the difference is made by queens. Queen d3 is passive and queen b2 is super powerful. So even if he plays the simple queen a1, he takes on a5, and this endgame is going to be tough for white to draw, because all he has to do is trade queens off, and we are obviously losing because he's got the passer on a7. So yeah, obviously Magnus saw this. He is the best endgame player, possibly of all time. So he played queen d6, and the rook endgame seems equal, despite white worse pawn structure. It is equal because we have an active rook and black has a passive rook on b8. So king f8. This is getting worse and worse for white. I mean, Magnus found a way to get a good position here. I mean, a drawish endgame. But us mortals, I bet most of us would lose this as white because our pawns are just too advanced and they are weaknesses. No queens on board, not enough pieces to attack. Our pawns, they are targets. And our kingside pawns are bad too. So here after king e8, yeah, I was proposing c5. Magnus played a6 first, black plays b6, and then c5. Yeah, as white, we are interested in trading as much as we can. We want to get rid of these potential weaknesses we have, so c5 makes a lot of sense. Black played king d7, takes, black takes with the a7 pawn obviously, if this, rook takes, and then we win with a7. So yeah, after pawn takes, then a takes b6, white a7, rook here, we take, rook takes a7, and as I was saying, as white, we have to, I mean, we're supposed to have a strong pass pawn, but this pawn is now a weakness. d6, we know this pawn is falling sooner or later. Our rook is too passive, protecting this pawn. So white, here he has, he's hoping to draw this. And that is exactly what Magnus did playing this move. And black little by little starts improving his position on the king side. Magnus, a player of his caliber, is not gonna lose this as white, but most of us, I bet we would lose this, or we would have a tough time defending this endgame, especially against Caruana. Black played king e6. He's got a clear intention, which is rook d7 and rook takes d6. He's got an extra pawn. So here Magnus decides to play d7 check. He's getting rid of his bad pawn, and now king takes d7. Well, if he played king e7, well, we can play rook e6, deviating the king. If he takes, then we promote, and if this, then we can safely draw this because pawns are equal. But yeah, after d7, king takes d7. Here Magnus played rook b5. Again, at this level, this is a draw, but as I said, it is not easy at all to defend this. Magnus found a way to activate his rook. Remember this, in rooks endgames, activity is all that matters. Activity is even more important than material. So king f6, a lot of checks, rook here, king f4, and it's almost impossible for black to make progress. Now, e4, takes, h3, and here white, with all pawns on the same side, it's very tough for black to win this. He would win if white made a huge mistake, and that is not happening at this level. So check, king f1, black plays this move. Another great move by Magnus. It is always good to put your rook on the same rank or file as your opponent's king. So this, rook b7, and we had a repetition. Caruana didn't want to play on because he knew this was going to be a draw anyway. So I guess he was trying to save energy for the next round. Of course, as black, we can continue, we can play on at this position, but as I was saying, against Carlsen, he's not gonna win. The most likely continuation here, imagine he plays e3, here we have rook f7, and then, yeah, if rook f5, we can take the rook on f5, we can take on g7 as well, and if he moves the king, then this is absolutely drawish. Very nice way of defending as white. And in this endgame, I mean, I recall watching this in some rook endgames books. These pawns here, they look awful, but they are a good way of protecting this 4 against 3. Usually these endgames are drawn, and you can tell that if black was winning this endgame, I mean, when we have this, if black was winning this endgame, then Caruana would have won here, because his endgame play is very, very good. So, tough to believe this still equal, and yeah, after a couple of moves, as we are watching, the game was drawn. A lot of rook endgames we'll have in this match. And yeah, during round 3 and round 4, as we'll see in next videos, we'll see some other rook endgames, as we had on the first round as well. So that's all for this analysis. I hope you found this useful. I hope you could learn something. And of course, I want to see you guys in my next videos. Thank you.